Hey folks, it's time for another segment of stuff I got in the mail. We've got my monthly subscriptions, my aquarium box, H2O Plants PlantPak, and 3 other products that I got from Amazon. We're going to open all this up and take a look right after this. Hey YouTube, this is Pecktec, and as you know, I like to mail order a little bit, like, okay, once a week at least. I buy something on Amazon and I have it sent over. And of course I've got my monthly subscription boxes. Now for these things, I haven't had a chance to implement any of these. I got them for very specific reasons, and we'll talk about that. We're gonna open them up and just kind of take a look. We've got a light here, we've got a skimmer, and we've got a little Fluval CO2 package. So we'll take a look at all this stuff in just a minute. Let's start with the subscription boxes. Actually, we'll start with the H2O Plants PlantPak, which of course I opened up a couple of days ago. So, because you don't want to let this plant pack sit around. I went ahead and I filmed the opening. Why don't we do that now? Gotta say, I'm always pretty excited to see what's going to come in my plant pack from H2O Plants. A lot of times it's stuff that I would have picked if I'd seen it in my local store, and a lot of times it's stuff I haven't seen in my local store, so that's kind of a double bonus. It's always good to get some plants from other places. This one I was pretty excited about. It's got a nice kind of pinkish reddish hue, and I think that will add a lot of color in my tank. I've got that one actually in a couple of different tanks. We'll see how it does. Here's some more Anubis. It's a really nice clean little piece of Anubis, which I like. A lot of my Anubis ends up with some algae on it, so it's always nice to have a nice clean one to stick in another tank. And of course we've got some Monte Carlo. This is like a really, really cool carpeting plant, and I think I've got just the spot for that in the 210. Okay, we got this last little plant. Now, I think I've had this plant before. I've had the kind of mixed results trying to grow this plant, so I'm not sure how it'll do. But we're going to give it a try and just see what it does in my tank. I'm hoping that it grows really well. Nice little bundle of plants this month. So pretty much all the plants went into the 210. Hopefully they'll grow really well in there, especially once I get that CO2 going. I still don't have it going yet, but I'm going to have it going soon. So be sure to check back in later and see how they do. Okay guys, we'll get to all this stuff in just a second, but I'm going to put it aside and we'll go ahead and do the My Aquarium Box for the month. And as you know, the tradition with My Aquarium Box is I open it with a new implement of destruction every month, and I've chosen this month the Ninja Star. But to be honest, I open a lot of these and I'm starting to forget what I've already opened with, so forgive me if this is a repeat, but Ninja Star seemed like a really fun way to open this box. All right, and a look inside. Of course, every month we start with the scorecard, and this month's value is $45.93. And of course, down at the bottom there are all the sponsors that make My Aquarium Box possible, and especially the prizes, which, by the way, there are the Mega Box winners and the Facebook winners from last month. You can post a picture of your contents on Facebook and maybe win a chance to get another one for free. You can film a video about unboxing just like this one, or simpler if you want, and possibly win a big prize, the Mega Box prize, which is pretty cool. Alright, right on top here we've got, looks like a 3-way coupon. We've got Tidal Gardens, a free frag with a $200 or more dollar purchase. Beantown Aquatics has a free fish with a $150 or more purchase, and H2O Plants, like we just talked about, H2O Plants is free water sprite with a $30 or more purchase, so that's pretty cool. All right, and let's see here. Right on top, it looks like we've got another little marina, another word for Hagen or Fluval, a little marina mini net. Very handy for these tiny little tanks. And right on top we've got some Sarah Spirulina tabs. Sarah is a really, really terrific food, and a lot of times these tab foods are great because you can take them and just stick them right to the side of your tank and the fish come right up there and eat it. It's very, very neat. We've also, from Hagen, we've got a little 3-way airline organizer and splitter. You can adjust the different levels of air pass through with all of these little knobs here. You run your hose in, and then out here it's got little runways to put your hose through, and it hooks right onto the side of your tank. I'm going to be sticking this on my box. I'm going to do a lot more air-driven stuff, I think, as time goes on. It's a really, really simple way to filter your tank with these air-driven pumps and that sort of thing. This will definitely go in my little toolbox for that. Flourish XL. Flourish XL is a very, very popular additive for planted tanks. It's sort of a CO2, a liquid CO2. I've referred to it as liquid CO2 many times, and I've been corrected many, many times by my viewers. Now, in some ways, I believe this is sort of an algicide, but it also gives some carbon to your plants. Like the intent, if you read the label, promotes ferrous state of iron. Okay, so it kind of puts your plants into a state to absorb iron. It's an extremely popular product. From what I can tell, it works pretty well. It's great to kind of establish a new tank. I like to start adding this to a tank before I do regular CO2, either homemade or the compressed air CO2. I like to add some of this in. A lot of times with a new tank, I'll put some of this in to kind of kick it off. And I was just about out of this, so I'm glad to get some more. Also right here, we've got some, looks like some big, remember that big, huge piece of cholo wood? That's another thing I get corrected about when I say the big, huge piece of cholo wood I got a while back. Well, this looks like little stump versions of that. So they're little tiny, little stump pieces of cholo wood. Really, really interesting looking piece of wood. You can do a lot of cool stuff with that. You can plant in there, put a little plant in there, maybe have a protective guard around the bottom of it, keep things from digging it up. That might be kind of an interesting way to use this. I'm going to find something really cool and creative way to use this, and I look forward to that. Pretty neat. What else we got here? Oh, we've got a little tiny thermometer. Is this yeah, another Marina product, a little thermometer. These are usually heat-based. Super handy to have. It's always a good idea to have a thermometer on your tank. I usually go with the glass ones, but this might be handy, especially for maybe a less showy tank or something like that. You can just kind of stick it on the side. Very cool. Very cool. And last but not least, I've got a little piece of spiderwood. Spiderwood's a really neat piece of wood, and boy, that's a tiny little piece. That would be good for like a little accent piece somewhere in an aquascape, or add it to some more spiderwood for even bigger thing. I got into spiderwood a while back, and it wasn't very popular. I actually had to really look around for it. Nowadays you can get spiderwood pretty commonly. It's pretty readily available at my local fish store. Of course, they just now started carrying dragonstone and all kinds of other stuff, which is neat. Finally, but spiderwood's pretty interesting. I think it's actually an azalea root, like some sort of Asian azalea root. So that's pretty cool. So let's line it up. And there we go, folks. A nice little assortment of aquarium products in this month's My Aquarium Box. So we're going to start with the Fluval CO2 kit. This is a little mini Fluval CO2 kit. And we're going to start with just like what's inside the box. And we'll talk about why you may or may not want this particular product. Alright, and then of course we have the instructions. Very useful to have instructions. And it looks like this one comes with, well, of course it comes with a regulator. And this is a really small regulator. It's got a meter to let you know exactly when the tank's getting empty. This does appear to be a disposable tank. It's not the kind of thing you'd refill. Of course, it's got the knob to open the air up, and then this is where the hose attaches right here. You'll notice there's no solenoid on this. We'll get to that later. And right here what we have is a bubble counter. What you'll do is you'll fill this up with water, and as the CO2 comes through here, it'll bubble through, and you can count the number of bubbles to sort of get an idea of how much CO2 is actually going into a system. And of course this has a handy little hook So you can kind of hook that to the side of your tank or wherever else you have to place it. And of course, next down here we have the check valve. What a check valve does is it only allows things to pass one way through it. You can use these things for water or usually air or CO2 or airline tubing of some sort. This is really important, so if the pressure ever stops, if this runs empty or is turned off for some reason, this will keep water from making its way and actually siphoning back through the hose and maybe damaging, rusting out your CO2 or any other kind of little instrument you have. A lot of times with an air pump, if you're pumping air into your tank, you use the check valve also. So it comes with one of those. And right here's a diffuser. This is the other side of the CO2, where the CO2 will end up. A hose will go right down into here, and then it'll blow out through this little ceramic disc. And this will make nice little misty bubbles that'll be easier to break down in your tank. So you want as much of that CO2 to break down, those bubbles to disintegrate into the water. You want as much of that as possible, and that makes little tiny bubbles, which of course will be easier to dissolve into the water. Okay, and right here we have something that's kind of handy. I've never used one of these before, but I think I might. It's a clip that goes on the side of the tank, and the airline tubing actually goes through these little clips, and that just kind of keeps the airline sort of managed, keeps it from bunching up and stuff. Pretty smart. It also could keep the thing from pulling too much and maybe knocking this out. So you can you run your airline through there, attach it to the top of the tank, and you'll have a nice sturdy little setup for your dispenser. And of course we've got a little bottle of CO2. What is this? A 95-gram bottle of CO2 and a little holder for it. This has little legs here, so you can set it down if you want to set it on something. But it also has a little lip right here, so you can hang it. So if you want to take this and hang that on the side of your tank, you could do it that way as well. And of course we've got some CO2 resistant airline. And you'll use this to connect all these pieces together to grow plants. Alright, so there it is all together back in the box. It's a nice little CO2 system. The way you would use this is you're going to manually turn this on during the day, for a period of time during the day, and let the CO2 run into the system as normal. Then you're going to have to go back and manually turn it off before nighttime, or before your lights come out. The manual part's where it starts to fall apart for old Pecktec, because I'm afraid I would forget, run CO2 all night, maybe either run the bottle empty or maybe overdose my fish or that sort of thing. This isn't something I would typically use at home, but the reason I got it is I've got a tank that I would like to take to work. There's a good chance that we've just moved into a brand new office. I used to have an aquarium at work quite a while, and when we first moved into the office, everybody was afraid to kind of decorate and stuff because all the furniture was new, everything was new. Now that we've been in there for a few weeks and things have kind of settled down, I'm looking at maybe taking an aquarium to work and starting that up again. Having an aquarium at work is really interesting because you can sort of, you can be a lot more fussy. The aquarium I used to have at work was one of my most maintained aquariums and my most watched aquariums. If I'm going to put a tank up someplace where I can really appreciate it and see it for a long time, it'd be at work. And what's handy is this is just another part of my workday ritual that I can add. If you're not, usually with CO2 you want to be pretty consistent, but if the weekend goes by and you're not adding CO2, it's not going to be the end of the world either. So this will be the kind of thing I can come to work, turn on my CO2 a little bit before the lights come on, turn it off a little bit before I leave, and it'll be a nice way to really grow some fresh, healthy plants there at work. So if you've got a work tank, some place where you're going to be at all day long, or maybe you've just got one tank that you're reasonably sure that you're going to be fussing over anyway, this might be a great way to kind of get started into pressurized CO2. Some of the other downsides to that are the small tanks. They tend to empty out a little bit faster. With the original Fluval Flora, it had really, really tiny ones. So I'm interested to see how long these like 95-gram tanks last. So we'll probably see this again as the work tank comes together, but for now we're going to put it aside and move on to our next product. Okay, so not long ago, in a video called Aquarium Add-on Items, I bought a little surface skimmer, both to play with in the big tank, which helped a lot in the initial stages of it. And then also, I eventually moved that onto one of my Fluval specs when I put it into the back of that. And I don't think I've shown you guys that at all. But I really like the way that worked out. A lot of the specs have a trouble with like surface slime for some reason. Just about every spec I've had has had some issue at some point with like a little bit of that surface area stuff that builds up. So I've been looking more and more into these little tiny surface skimmers that I can maybe stick into the back portions, into that filter portion. And of course I've got that new 16-gallon spec. And I've got the Flex 15-gallon, which also has a large chamber back there in the back before you even get to the filter. So I found another one of these. It's fairly inexpensive. This was even less expensive than the other one that I had before, at least when I bought it. And it's a neat little surface skimmer. It's a bit large, but I think this will still fit into the back chamber of one of these Fluval Flexes. You may not be able to use it with everything that it comes with. And what's interesting too is separate outside the box it came with this other bracket. I guess this is like to attach it to maybe a larger aquarium. The bracket it came with is pretty small, it's pretty thin. But it came with this, but it was packed separately, which I thought that was pretty unusual. Looks like it's got a little spray bar, which of course if I put it in the back I probably wouldn't use this. It's got some little plastic screws and stuff, more than likely to attach. You put that on here to attach it. We got another little L-shaped piece of plastic tubing here. And of course we've got the skimmer itself. So here's the skimmer. We've got the top part that I suppose will float close to the surface, and of course it moves up and down so that as the water level changes, this will change with it. And the next component is sort of this porous material. Then we got a little bit more coarse material down in here. And at the very bottom we've got a little pump with an impeller. And it looks like, looking at the instructions on the side of the box, it looks like it goes together like this. I thought this was funny. It kind of is loose in here, like the whole bottom's open. So this is just kind of an empty, hollow shell. But you take the little bracket here, you add it into the side. You take the longer one, and we're going to put it like so. This kind of fits on there like that. And then the spray bar, of course, goes like that. This goes back on the top, and you've got yourself a little skimmer. Now, of course, if I put this in the back of the new spec or the Flex, what I'll probably do is just lose this part, or maybe this part, and just let... oh, that's cool. So this moves around a little bit, so you can actually adjust the height. See, I didn't even know it did that. You can adjust the height of this thing. But I'll probably pull some amount of this off. I'll leave one in here just to kind of keep that motor locked in. The motor stays locked in once you've got that piece in. And figure out a way to mount it. I'm not sure what I'll use to mount it. But more than likely, I'll be redoing the Flex. In fact, I think next week's video is going to be basically about taking some aquariums down and doing that sort of change. But when I redo the Flex, I'll probably implement this in there first. And if I like it, then I'll get another one for the spec, because this was really inexpensive. How well it works, unfortunately, I can't tell you yet. I have not implemented it yet. I know the other little one that I bought for the aquarium add-ons worked really, really well. It'd be a good one to sub out for this one if I don't like the way it works. But this is a little bit cheaper, so I thought I'd give it a shot. And from what I can tell, just holding it, it's a lot bigger than the other one was. It's a lot heavier than the other one was, so I'll be interested to see how well this actually works. Okay folks, that brings us to our last product. Now this was actually recommended by one of my viewers back when I did the I did the floodlight versus Kessel video, another very controversial video that some people loved and some people hated. This was highly recommended by one of my viewers, and I thought I'd check it out. It's not terribly expensive, and I actually got this a few weeks ago, and I have not really taken it out to look at it, so let's not waste any more time. Let's get this out and really take a good look at what this is. Alright. Now, of course, we've got this all together. It's got a dimmer, which is interesting and different. I don't see that on a lot of these products, and that is real handy if you get something that's a little brighter than you wanted, or if you want to put this on a smaller tank that just doesn't need the extra light. Another thing that's nice is it's got a nice metal gooseneck, and again, something you don't see a lot. Oh, and this this feels pretty solid too. It's a nice solid metal, sort of heat sink, and so this is a heat sink and a housing for this little tight cluster of LEDs, which is pretty cool. Alright, so that's that stuff. And what else we got here? In the box, is this metal? Yeah. We've got a nice little metal mounting clip. That looks wide enough to go on either rimless or rimmed tank, I would think. And we've got another bag here with a couple of things that are interesting. One thing is the mounting screw that, of course, will go with this to get the thing onto the side of your tank. But also in here we have a lens. So one thing you can do with this thing that you can't do with a lot of these little LED lights like that is switch this lens out. So if you want a little bit wider spread, you can actually, it shows, there's a picture here. It looks like it probably comes with the 180 degree lens built in, but this unscrews. It's a nice little metal, pretty cool, metal. You can unscrew the metal cover, kind of pop this off. And this is just like a clear screen or something. So I guess without any kind of lens, it's 180. But you can put this on and kind of narrow it down to a 60 degree lens. And that just depends on what works best for you. Very cool. All right, I'm just going to put this back on here. I'm going to want to see how it starts, and then decide if I want to narrow down the light or something else. But this is real heavy. This is metal. This isn't plastic. Feels very sturdy. I was expecting a little bit cheaper light because this wasn't super expensive. But it's got, this gooseneck feels just like the Kessel goosenecks. It's got a dimmer, which you know, I guess the Kessel has a dimmer too, but it also costs, you know, hundreds of dollars more. So as far as specs on this light, this is it says input power 12-16 watts. It's random. Suitable tank, 8-inch to 18-inch long tank. It's got there's a marine jellyfish version of this. It looks like it even has a remote control that goes with the marine jellyfish one. And then there's a plant one, which is what this one is. So that's pretty cool. I'm kind of curious to see. I'd like to visually see how bright this is. How about you guys? Yes, we would all like to see it plugged in, por favor. Okay, no problem. Anything for you. That's really bright. I'd say that's easily brighter than the light that I have inside my Flex right now. It might even be a suitable replacement for that if I find a way to kind of get this, if I decide to go without a lid, I guess. Oh, does this dim down? No, okay. So there's the dimmer. Looks like you got pretty decent, that's actually on, pretty decent amount of control. Oh, it does jump up quite a bit. Of course, now I can't see anything but spots. With it dimmed down, it looks like there's just like a little small set of the LEDs on. not a super granular range of brightnesses. It looks like it really jumps up, and then it just goes, yeah, up towards the top. You've got a little bit of leeway. It's not too bad. It does seem to jump. It seems to jump from there to there, and then you can sort of control it again as you go back down. But wow, turn it up all the way. That's pretty bright. Let's see if I can make this over here. Yeah, I'd say that's a fairly bright light. I've got a ton of floating plants in here, which is why this tank looks a little bit dimmer than it usually does. I'd say this was definitely a decent light. If you got a small little nano tank or something like that, this is a pretty cool light. I'm actually excited to see what this will do. I'll turn it off for now because I'm blind. I'm now blind. I'll never be able to enjoy my aquariums again. So this seems like a really good buy to me, especially if we got a small tank. I think it said 8 to 18 inches. Now, if you're curious about any of these products, there'll be links down in the description below to my Amazon store. It is an affiliate link, so I get a little bit of credit if you decide to buy off there, just fair warning. In the past, I've put individual links for the different products and stuff, but Amazon's actually made it really easy. I can just kind of add things I buy to a list, so you'll see a kind of a showcase of products that I've shown on other videos as well. So it's kind of like every product that I show will eventually be on this list. Feel free to bookmark it if you'd like to check back and see other things later on. And I think that's where I'm going to end it today. Next week, I'm going to be taking down some of my smaller tanks. It's come down to the point where I really need to pare down the tanks. I'd like to focus on a few of my favorite tanks instead of just kind of having stuff everywhere. And there's a couple of tanks I'd really like to redo, like the Flex and some other stuff. So next week's video is basically going to be about deciding when to give up on an aquarium. Or something similar to that. That's kind of a working title that I'm working with right now. But until then, and until next time, follow your bliss, keep a clean tank, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. And then I've got the spotted wood's really, really interesting. Really, really, really. A misty immersion. This will make a nice little misty. This will make nice little misty bubbles that'll keep, you know, coming up right after this. Hello again, folks. It's time for another Stuff I Got in the Mail segment. Hey YouTube, this is Hey YouTube, this is Pecktec, and I've actually got a little two-way. I was hoping to get a three-way, so that's good. Hoping for a three-way. Rated G, Sean. But wait, there's more. Let's unbox some more stuff. Taking stuff out of boxes. Something people do on the internet. Take stuff out of boxes. Why do people watch this? I don't know.